Here also, yeah.
You see recording by you?
1 second.
By me it's red. If you see red, you know it's recording. See, you made a beep and...
I should say that the video is currently in use.
No, try it again. Turn it. Push the X. You have a special program in your computer?
One second. It's on the device. What's on by you now?
See this? Recording? It's recording.
That's recording? So let me ask you something. Oh, let's see.
Oh. Are you getting Wi-Fi so far?
Yeah. Connected to 5 bars, so.
My name is Dr. Cheryl Greenberger, and I want to welcome all of you here, those in person and on the webcast. As director of our mission, I'm excited to welcome you here tonight. As I stand here before you, the words that I keep hearing in my head are the bracha, the blessing of She'achianu v'kimanu v'higianu l'zman hazeh. Blessed are you, Hashem, our God, King of the universe, who has enlivened us, who has sustained us, and who has brought us to this moment. Being able to welcome you to this inaugural event of our mission, from remission to our mission, is a moment where a dream is being fulfilled, for myself personally, for Rabbi Scholar, and for many others at Chai Lifeline. It's a moment where I not only have to thank, first and foremost, Hashem for bringing us to this moment, but where I must thank all those who have made this program, and specifically this event, possible. I want to firstly thank Rabbi Scholar for his leadership, guidance, and vision, and for giving me the opportunity to be, on a daily basis, a part of such an important mission. I want to thank all those in the Advisory Committee and Young Leadership Committee for offering opinions and suggestions and helping us create a program that we hope will benefit Jewish cancer survivors all over the world. I want to thank Rabbi Gabioff and Zahava Farbman, who have been instrumental in getting this program off the ground. I should probably also take this opportunity to apologize publicly to them for constantly filling up their email inboxes with my daily ideas and anxious concerns. I would also like to thank all of the Chai Lifeline staff who have helped every step of the way from ideas, suggestions, recruitment, and most importantly, in the offer of support and encouragement. I want to thank Nachman Maimon for being here today to make sure every part of this evening's program runs smoothly. I want to thank Dr. Pelkowitz for agreeing not only to be part of our advisory committee, but to speak tonight and offer us words of encouragement. I want to thank Rabbi Shapiro for making the trip all the way from Florida to provide us with his words of inspiration. I must thank Moshe Klein of MK Inc. Creative Group for his graphic work for our mission and for always answering with a smile, even when we called with yet another change to be made. I also want to thank Duvi Perkowski and his team at Duvi's Media for not only creating our ourmission.org website, which I hope all of you will go on tonight to try out, but for doing it within our, at times, ridiculous, almost impossible time constraints, and as well as helping us for our webcast tonight. I want to thank Scott Fagan of Oasis Caterers for our delicious food tonight, Kedem Winery for providing the fantastic assortments of wine for our wine tasting this evening, Dina Rogoff for helping with our beautiful decor, David Blatt for entertaining us with his magic and illusions, and Mendel Goldstein for taping tonight's event, so all of those watching via webcast can participate tonight as well. A special Akar Satov, a grateful recognition, goes to our hosts, Zahava and Seth Farbin, for opening up their home for this event without a moment's hesitation. And last, but certainly not least, I want to thank all of you for coming out here tonight to participate in this momentous event. We encourage your suggestions, we encourage your participation. If you want to volunteer, if you want to help us, if you have ideas, we want to hear about them. So please feel free to email us, to contact us through the website, or to call us in the office, and we're happy to hear anything that you have to say. This is your program, and we want it to be something that's for you, by you, and something that we're really proud of, and all of you sitting here tonight are going to be proud of as well. Without further ado, it's my pleasure to introduce Rabbi Simcha Scholar, Executive Vice President of Chai Lifeline, who will begin our program tonight with a few opening remarks.
Thank you, Cheryl. It really is a pleasure to be here in this very, very important launching event of our mission. And I think this will be the beginning of an incredible community, because that's the goal, to create a community of survivors to be with us forever and ever, and deal with the issues as they come along, and to give each other strength. I must tell you a very interesting story. I have a number of interesting habits. I'm not going to tell you all of them. One of them is I happen to like to go for shoe shines. Anyway, in Penn Station, there's a place where I go. And the gentleman that I like to give me the shoe shine is a gentleman by the name of McIntosh. That's his name. Never understood if that's his first name or his last name. That's what he calls himself, McIntosh. McIntosh is an older gentleman, comes from the South, Alabama. He once told me his history. He went from Alabama to Missouri to Virginia to Pittsburgh, everywhere there was a Union Station. And he eventually ended off in Penn Station. While McIntosh was doing my shoes, I said, McIntosh, by the way, how long have you been doing this already? He says, Rabbi, how long do you think? I said, I don't know, 50 years? No, longer. I said, longer than 50 years? You've been shining shoes? Yeah. 60 years? No, Rabbi. 70 years? No, Rabbi. I said, McIntosh, how long have you been shining shoes? He said, 74 years, Rabbi, since I was 8 years old in Alabama. So I'm looking at him, he's shining my shoes. He's been shining shoes for 74 years, and he says to me, Rabbi, I want to tell you that every day was special, and I love what I do. I gave him a few dollars of a tip, and I walk out of Penn Station, and I said, this was one of the most incredible Mussar lessons I've had in my entire life. Here you have a gentleman that's obviously doing menial labor, and he taught me that he enjoys every day of his life, that he appreciates every day of his life. A great philosopher once compared life to a train. A train is constantly moving forward. But on these long trains, there's the front car, there's the freight car, there's the luxury car, and there are all different other types of cars. As we go forward in life, there are many, many different experiences. Some very, very pleasurable, some very, very uncomfortable, some very, very difficult. But it's a train, and life keeps on going forward. We just had the experience of observing the holiday of Shavuos, the day when we remember the receiving of the Torah. And quite interesting, on the day that the Torah was given, and Moshe and Moses came down with the tablets, with the luchos, and the first pair of luchos, the first tablets were broken. And the second pair of luchos that were given on Yom Kippur, a couple months after, those are the ones that we use. But nevertheless, in the Aron HaKodesh and the Aron and the Ark, both the broken luchos and the complete luchos were stored. And there's quite an interesting observation in this. The first luchos, the Torah uses the words Maaseh Elokim. These luchos, these tablets, were written with a supernatural script, that it was almost impossible for this spiritual, holy, soul-like substance to exist in this world. And the second luchos, the second pair of tablets, the Torah says, Psol, was written for the people. And the life lesson is as follows. There are times in life where we use supernatural strength to get through a certain situation. And who knows better than the people here in this room? There are times that we never thought that physically or emotionally we were able to get through a diagnosis, a treatment, some terrible news, some dismal future. And somehow or other we mustered the strength, supernatural strength. Because when we studied life, or when we planned out life, we would have never thought that we would have the wherewithal, the courage, the strength to overcome what we overcame. And that, my good friends, is symbolic of the very first tablet. It was supernatural. It was angelic. But it wasn't made to last forever. It was given to us for a specific time. And then there is the succeeding parts of life, where we need to deal with realities, where we need to deal with the situations that come about. Experiences are not just a flash. Experiences change someone's life. We are different people because we experienced what we experienced. And if we're different people, then we have different sets of issues, and we have different needs, and that's the purpose of why we need a community. So we need to appreciate every day of life. We need to enjoy every day of life. And we need to deal with the very unique issues that come about post-cancer treatment. Male, female, husband, wife, father, mother. We just need to deal with it. And we do have the strength to deal with it. We do. We just have to kind of give strength to one another. Without further ado, it's a privilege, a true privilege, to introduce to you, in my opinion, one of the most dynamic speakers in America today, a person that has spoken numerous times for Chai Lifeline, and each time he somehow or other hits the point magnificently, eloquently. Dynamic rabbi from North Miami Beach. It's a privilege to introduce to you Rabbi Ephraim Shapiro.
I want to just thank Rabbi Scholar, and I know that I think you said in a few nights you'll be making a chasna, making a wedding. So on behalf of everyone here, a tremendous, tremendous mazel tov. And you and your entire family for in the merit of everything that you do for all of Klal Yisrael, really thousands upon thousands. You and your family should always be able to enjoy the simchas in the best of health. It's a tremendous honor to be here for Chai Lifeline, especially with it at the helm of Rabbi Scholar. I just want to start by acknowledging the presence of Dr. Pelkowitz. It's a tremendous, tremendous privilege to speak in his presence, and I do want to start by offering a sincere apology. I would love, in a great way, to be able to stay and hear him speak, but I have a flight to catch to get back to North Miami Beach. And I told my family I would really try to make that flight. So I'm apologizing. Please forgive me that literally when we finish in about 40 or so minutes, I'll be running to catch my flight. It is certainly my loss not to be able to hear him. And I also want to thank Rabbi Moti Gabioff. Where is he, or probably still working? Behind the scenes? All right, wherever he is, a tremendous thank you to him, because he originally invited me, and it's because of him that I came. A number of years ago, approximately, probably a little bit less than 12 years ago, one of the great, great Torah sages in America, his name is Rabbi Shmuel Kamenetsky, and he is the head of the Philadelphia Yeshiva, an outstanding Torah luminary. He was coming to our home in North Miami Beach, and it was a privilege. He was coming and he was going to stay in our home. It was starting on a Thursday evening together with his wife. Of course, when you have someone come like a king, you set up, I can't say I take much credit, my wife, she should live and be well, set up in the dining room, but really a beautiful fleischig, a meat meal with cutlery and crystal and silver. It was really like a Suda, a feast for a king. And if you are familiar with Reb Shmuel Kamenetsky, one of his amazing and outstanding qualities, a very humble person. When he walked in and he saw the way it was set up in the dining room Thursday evening for dinner, he looked at me and said, Reb Ephraim, you didn't have to set up this way. You could have served in the kitchen, milk meal, milchigs, and, on paper and plastic. You didn't have to set up like this. I was really flummoxed. I didn't know what to answer, so I turned to him and I said, addressing him in the proper way, Rosh Hashiva, this is the way we eat every Thursday evening. So, okay, the comment came and went. A little while later, we're all situated around the table, and our oldest, who at the time, now can I know her, she's turning 16, at the time she was about 4, she said loudly she wanted to just go next door and play with friends. Was that okay? We said, sure, no problem. She goes, she runs to the door, she comes running back, and loudly she starts pulling on my jacket and says, but Tati, please don't make Kiddush until I get home. And Reb Shmuel Kamenetsky looked at me and said, every Thursday night? There are definitely events in our life that don't always seem to be the way they appear. And tonight, this evening, is such an event. And I want to thank the Farbmans just to start for not opening their house, but opening their home. House, that's something that many people open. A home is totally different. Home is where the heart is. And I just had the privilege upstairs of meeting the Farbmans, and I'm very grateful to them. In fact, I want to wish them the bracha, the blessing of the Arizal. In Pirkei Avos, Ethics of Our Fathers, we say, Yehi Beischa Pasuach Lervacha, which literally means your home should be open for relief. The Arizal punctuates it differently and says, Yehi Beischa Pasuach, when you learn to have an open home and heart, Lervacha, it brings you relief, and it brings you enjoyable moments. And so I hope that that blessing is indeed true for the Farbman Mishpacha, for their entire family. He Beischa Pasuach, because they opened up not only their house, but their home and heart, Lirvacha, that it should bring them revach, enjoyment, to be enjoyed in the best of health. And yes, this is a type of night that we could say, it's not always the way it seems to appear. As Rabbi Scholar said a few moments ago so eloquently, over 100 people gathered essentially to thank Hashem. Many of whom are survivors and many others who are either spouses or parents of those survivors. And so tonight is a night that it's not, one can walk by and say, oh, it's a gathering like hundreds of others. No, it is not. Not by any stretch of the imagination. It is awesome and it is unique. And tonight is a night to make Kiddush. Tonight is a night to say thank you. And I realized that I acknowledged more than 100 men and women in this room, but that number wasn't accurate. For in many, many places across America and other parts of the world, they're currently listening to this entire evening. So we're not just united in this room in Woodmere. We're united with hundreds of others throughout America and throughout the world. And so in the time I have, I'd like to share with you, maybe we could best open with a thought, and then we'll break it into three. Obviously, when a person goes through an illness, it does a tremendous amount to instill within them emunah, faith in Hashem. Now, the animal that we're taught teaches us best emunah is the tzvi, it is the deer. There's a lot to say on it, but just in 30 seconds, an obvious hint and allusion to this is that the numeric value of tzvi, tzaddik being 90, beis being 2, and yud being 10, a total of 102, Emunah, Aleph, Mem, Vav, Nun, Hey, is also 102. It is from a deer, a tzvi, that one learns how to instill and inculcate into their very being emunah, faith and belief and turning to Hashem. Now, there are many ways to understand that. I think the two easiest ways. And I remember hearing this medrash, this Torah thought. I remember hearing in the name of my father Zatzal. He also expounded upon it. In two ways you take a look at the deer. Number one, before the deer will charge or sprint so gracefully forward, it tends to look back. Most often it looks back before it moves forward. And that's one way to instill within you emunah. One has to look back at what a person went through, where they came from, how much there is to appreciate before they spring forward. And, might we add, someone told me that there is a medrash that the rabbis tell us, not only does the deer turn back, but the deer also takes, I'm not so knowledgeable in deer, but apparently the deer takes a step back before it springs forward. Because very often it's precisely when one takes a step back, when one goes through a trial and tribulation, that is the impetus. That's what creates such a magnificent springing forward. So I think it's these two aspects of the deer. Number one, it turns around to view the past. And secondly, precisely the step it takes back is what so brilliantly springs it forward. These are two powerful ways to learn emunah, faith in Hashem, from a deer. And so if tonight is indeed a night of looking back and then springing forward, I'd like to share with everyone and those listening in many, many cities 3 ways. I am sure that if everyone went around the room, they would have many ways that they on their own would come up with. I'm merely sharing 3 with you that I think everyone can relate to. 3 ways we can learn from the deer. I look back, and that's precisely what enables me to spring forward and to better relate and say thank you. 3 lessons. Number 1. I'm sure that the way we're about to start off this parable, many of them start the same way, but the ending is different, believe me. It talks about a fellow who is traveling, biking, shall we say, on top of a large mountain by a cliff, and unfortunately, he takes a misstep, and as a result, he literally starts plunging hundreds of feet down the side of the mountain. And in the middle of the side of the mountain, there is this large branch. And all of a sudden, for dear life, this fellow goes ahead and he grabs onto the branch for dear life, like this, clinging tenaciously. He realizes, although he's still a few hundred feet, I say that because some people think it's the story where he's just 2 feet from the ground. No, he's still hundreds of feet, dangling, suspended in midair, crying out to be saved. And all of a sudden, as the parable continues, he hears a loud booming voice. God himself says, "You want me to save you?" And he calls out, "God, I will do anything, just save me." And he's holding on to the branch, and the branch starts to crack a bit more. And all of a sudden, again, from the depths of his heart, Mimamakim, he calls out, "God, really, I'll do anything. Hashem, just save me." And the scenario repeats itself. You hear the booming voice where Hashem says anything, and again, the branch starts to crack more and more until it looks like it's going to splinter. And finally, he calls out from the depths as he could only muster up at that moment. He says, "I will truly do anything, just save me." And at that last moment, before the branch is going to crack, God says, "Fine. You'll do anything, anything at all." God says, "Fine. Here's what I want you to do. Let go of the branch, and I'll save you." Now, I say that's very different than many parables, because in the ones we've heard in the past, he's told to take this upon himself and this commitment, this resolve, this resolution. Not so. Hashem says to that person who's going through a particular vicissitude in life, "Are you willing to let go of the branch?" Letting go of the branch means, is anyone foolish enough to think that we are in control? Hashem is telling that person when they're going through the trial or tribulation, if you're willing to let go of the branch, then I'll save you. Now, if you think about this concept, when one does let go of the branch, there's no feeling like it in the world. A number of years ago, approximately 9, I myself had to let go of the branch. About 9 years ago, I wasn't well, lo aleinu. And after having been diagnosed as well, someone taught me this parable. And it instilled within me tremendous emunah. That's the idea of letting go of the branch. Because the whole while that you think, I'm in charge and I'm in control and that's not true. Anyone in this room and their spouses and their parents can tell you, when you let go of the branch, that means that you're turning to Hashem and saying, "You're in charge. I'm in your hands." And when you truly get to that feeling, as I years ago tried, there's no feeling like it in the world. They say over a beautiful Hasidic story from one of the Hasidic masters that he was in a car, and the driver is proceeding along, and by the dashboard, by the passenger, there's like a little toy, like you'd almost have a child with a Fisher-Price, a little wheel, like a yellow wheel with a red horn, the little things that children love playing with. And the wheel is attached to the passenger dashboard. So he turns to the nahag, he says to the driver, "What's up with the little Fisher-Price wheel?" So to that, he says, the driver, "When my 6-year-old son comes in the car, he likes going like this and like this and like this. And it makes him feel with the little wheel like he's in control and he's in charge." So the Hasidic master turns to the driver and says, "And you with the big wheel, you think you're in charge?" That's the truth. That's what it means to let go of the branch. The Jewish nation is very often compared to fish. And I once heard, of course, there are many, many reasons why, many of the famous commentaries, but I heard a different reason. Sometimes, if you study the fish, maybe being from South Florida, we're into fishing a bit more than in the New York area, but if you study fishing a little bit, you can have a fish. It might help to watch the hands to give a little bit clarity to the issue. If you watch, when you open up, you have a large fish that's chasing a smaller fish. It wants its dinner. Now, when you cut open that larger fish, you should find the tail of the smaller fish in the back of the larger fish and the head by the front of the big fish. Because if it is pursuing the smaller fish like this and catches up with it, then the tail is now in the back and the head of the small fish is in the front. Yet when you cut open the large fish, it's not that way. The head of the smaller fish is in the back of the large fish with the tail by the front. How could that be? The commentaries teach us because although this large fish is chasing the smaller fish like this and like this and like this, because that's its supper, out of nowhere, another fish comes from the opposite direction right into the mouth of the larger fish. And hence, since it came from elsewhere, the opposite direction, unexpectedly, not planned in any way, shape, or form, it swam into the larger fish. That's why the head of it is going to be in the back of the larger fish. And that's why we're compared to fish. So often we are sure that, of course, we have to do our hishtadlus. We must do what we can. But then we have to realize, let go of the branch. Just take a look at the fish. The fish was so sure that its dinner was coming because it's chasing that fish. And yet when you cut it open, you find that out of nowhere, unexpectedly, not planned, the salvation came from somewhere else. Hence, a fish in the opposite direction ends up, and that's why you find the head of the small fish in the back of the larger fish. This is what it means to let go of the branch. I remember someone telling me years ago a quote from Rav Gifter that tells a Rosh Hashiva something that not only have I never forgotten, but subsequently in many, many cities. I remember on a number of trips to South Africa, people there who were in remission or who were going through treatment came and asked me for a thought that could be inspirational. I told them what Rav Gifter said. When a person is going through an illness, one can tend to get caught up with statistics. I remember hearing many statistics, this type and this statistic, and just tremendous number of statistics. Rav Gifter once said something, it may but so poignant. He explained, statistics only tell you about the past. Think about that comment. People will tell you that statistics tell you about the future. That's not true. What tells us about the future is the willingness to let go of the branch, the willingness to turn to Hashem and say, I know I'm not in charge. The ability to turn to Hashem and say, I need your help, please. Other people may tell you statistics teach you about the future. It's not true. Statistics tell you about the past. You want to know about the future? You have to be willing to let go of the branch. You have to be willing to have that sensation, that spectacular feeling, I'm not in charge. And you could tell me all the statistics you want. But if I'm willing to pray, and I'm willing to have emunah, and I'm willing to let go of the branch, that has nothing to do with statistics. This is a world that's beyond. At that time, approximately 9 years ago, when I was going to start treatment, lo aleinu, so the nurse practitioner walked in and startled my thoughts, and she said, "Rabbi Shapiro, be positive." And I remember I was very taken aback, like I thought I really was, and I was letting go of the branch and strength. I was caught off guard, to be honest with you, and I started to mention to the nurse practitioner, like, I was taken aback that you're telling me, like rebuking me, be positive, when I certainly thought I have been, and I've been giving that strength to others. And she cuts me off in mid-sentence and says, take it easy. 20 minutes ago, we took your blood, and you asked me to tell you what your blood type is, and I'm merely telling you, be positive. That's exactly the way the story went. But you know as well, she's right. She's 100% right. Your blood type could be O, B, A. It doesn't make a difference. Be positive. Don't talk to me about statistics. Talk to me about turning to Hashem. Talk to me about having emunah. Talk to me about working on myself. With your permission, I'd like to quickly segue into the second of the three. After we've established this concept, I want to tell you something. After I gave a very powerful lecture about letting go of the branch, the concept must have caught on like wildfire. Because subsequently, one of my congregants from North Miami Beach went to Chicago. And a little while later, when I went to Chicago to speak, I walked into the home of my host where I was staying, and all of a sudden there was a plaque on the wall that said, let go of the branch. And sure enough, this congregant told it to someone who told it to this host, and before I knew it, I was getting plaques that say, let go of the branch. That's one way to look back, to spring forward tonight and say, thank you. The second of our three for this evening, I think it could best be understood with a very powerful thought from the great Reb Chaim Shmulevitz. Reb Chaim Shmulevitz was the great Mir Rosh Hashiva. I think it's something we can all relate to. In the Torah, it talks about someone who's a Ritzeach B'Shoigeg. That means someone who kills unintentionally. Without going into too much detail, because there's still a little bit to cover, this fellow who kills unintentionally goes to an Ir Mikvah, which means a city of refuge, and the only way he goes free is with the death of the Kohen Gadol, the high priest. I think we're pretty familiar on different levels with the story. So, the mother of the Kohen Gadol would visit this man in the city. His only way that he can go free is if her son dies. So what do you think she does? The Gemara tells us she would bring him cakes and different things to do what? To get him not to pray for her son to die. Now I imagine if I went around the room, does anybody want to ask the obvious question about what she's doing and his response? We could open up the floor like to a pretty obvious question. Put yourself in the shoes of the one who killed unintentionally, and you're being told that you can go free with the death of the high priest. And the mother comes along in the vernacular and she offers you a donut. She offers you a little bit of kokosh cake. I don't know, whatever you like. That's going to get you to stop davening? Like because you get a little bit of, a fine, whatever it is, a Stella D'Or, a Krispy Kreme where it's kosher, whatever it is. Now all of a sudden, okay, I won't pray for your son to die. Like, hello, I want to go free. So Reb Chaim Shmulevitz says so eloquently, she didn't think that if she brought the cake, he was going to stop davening. Of course he wasn't going to stop davening. His life depends on it. Like, hello? He wasn't going to stop davening. But however, because he accepted these sweets from the mother, subconsciously, unbeknownst to him, his davening would be a little bit less intense, maybe one notch less sensitive and less acute. Says Reb Chaim Shmulevitz, something that's off the chart. Of course he's going to keep davening, but he's going to start praying even subconsciously with a little bit less intensity, with a little bit less acuteness and poignancy to his prayer. And he says the difference between this guy going free and not is that little bit of intensity. Sometimes people think that when it comes to prayer, I don't know how to do it, and it's so grandiose and it's so overwhelming. That's not true. How many times have we been told about people that don't even know how to daven? They come to shul on Yom Kippur, the holiest day of the year, and they say to Hashem, everybody is talking here by Kol Nidre. They're davening this, they're davening that. I don't know how to pray. God, here's the deal. I'm going to say the Aleph Beis, the Hebrew alphabet, again and again and again. And I'm offering it up. You rearrange the letters. You rearrange the prayer however you want. The Kotzker Rebbe used to say, Ein davar shalem kelev nishbar. There's nothing as whole as a broken heart. My father, Harav Mordechai Shapiro Zatzal, used to say, it says in the famous chapter in Tehillim, Shir HaMalos Mimamakim, he used to read it like this, Shir HaMalos, which song and prayer ascends? Mimamakim, when it comes from deep down, from a broken heart. Yes, Reb Chaim Shmulevitz is telling us when we had to turn and beseech Hashem, no one should think it was the big and the grandiose. Offer up the Aleph Beis. Sometimes the prayer comes in the form of a tear. You know, sometimes they say a Hasidic twist that there's something called shir, which is the song that emanates from my mouth, and then there's something called shiyorei zimra, the words that are remnants, they don't come out. Words, once they come out, are so physical in nature. What's stuck in the depths of my soul and heart that hasn't yet come into the world, nothing beats that. How many of us experienced and still experience those moments? I'm certainly not putting the onus on the women more than the men. If anything, I'm giving them far, far, far more credit. There's a famous Hebrew sentence that says, Miyale bahar Hashem umiyakum b'mkoim kodsha, which literally means who can ascend the mountain of God and who can remain in that lofty plateau. I think everyone can ascend sporadically with bursts of inspiration, but how many of us can remain? You know who gets the credit for our family remaining on that level? If you enjoy gematria numeric value, the numeric value of Yale, which is spelled Yud, Ayin, Lamed, Hey, is 115. The numeric value of Yokum, which means to remain on that echelon, Yud, Kuv, Vav, Mem, is 156. And what, pray tell, is the difference between 156 and 115? 41. The word for the Jewish mother, Aim, Aleph, Mem, is 41. Everyone has that ability, Yale, sporadically to feel that burst of inspiration. But the level of Yokum, to remain now, that's our mission, to remain. The power of prayer is awesome, but the power of prayer when it comes from a woman transforms a home from the level of Yale to a level of Yokum. From merely being on a level on occasion to remaining. And it's something that inspires a spouse, a sibling, a parent, a child. Maybe I am partly putting the onus on the Jewish women, but it certainly comes with a great debt of hakaras hatov, for their prayer can accomplish so much. It takes us from merely Yale to Yokum. And this, I think, is the second thing to look at when we talk about the deer. We're looking back to spring forward. Springing forward means that we keep thanking Hashem and we don't stop. When I was preparing for this talk, my wife, she should live and be well, reminded me, and I couldn't thank her enough. Maybe she's even listening to this. I couldn't thank her enough. She says, you gotta tell them about Kos Yeshuos Eson. She's right. And with this, we'll start concluding the second of our three topics. The Gemara discusses, the Talmud discusses that everyone can bench, which means to say the Birchas Hamazon at the Suda of the Levyasan in the world to come. But many people, for different reasons, it was rejected, and the answer was no. The one who was chosen to lead the Birchas Hamazon was David HaMelech. Why? King David. So the Gemara says, because in the Hallel, which we say on Rosh Chodesh and on the holidays, it says over there that David HaMelech, Tzara v'yagon emtza, when woe and agony found me, uveshem Hashem ekra, I called out to God. And what does the next chapter say? Kos Yeshuos esa, when the cup of salvation found me, uveshem Hashem ekra, I continued calling out to God. And Hashem said when he saw that character trait, you lead the benching. You, David HaMelech, lead Birchas Hamazon. How many people in the world have the ability, Uveshem Hashem Ekra, to call out to God when Tzara v'yagon emtza, during the trials and tribulations of life? But how many people keep up that level by Kos Yeshuos esa? And my wife reminded me, and she's right, many people fulfilled Uveshem Hashem Ekra, thanking God and calling out to Him during the moments of Tzara v'yagon emtza, when woe and agony and despair found them. Tonight's an evening of Kos Yeshuos esa, Uveshem Hashem Ekra. Everyone here could lead benching in that sense. There is a parable I said over a number of years ago, and somebody subsequently showed me that it was written up in Mishpacha magazine about a month ago, and apparently it walloped a punch. It was about a fellow who was looking to get recognized, and it wasn't happening. So he went to the top of a skyscraper, maybe 65 flights up, opened up the window, took a stack of thousands of $10 bills, and he cut it open and he let them snowflake hundreds of feet to the ground. And people came from the north and the south and the east and the west, and they grabbed the money, and nobody looked up. And he's thinking, like, how do you get noticed? So he took $50 bills, right? 50 people relate to. And he took a large stack of thousands of them, he cut them open, and he let them snowflake to the ground. And they came from the north and the south and the east and the west, and they grabbed, and no one looked up. And he's thinking, this is crazy. All I want to do is get noticed. They get hundreds. Everybody responds to hundreds. He takes thousands of $100 bills, and he goes ahead and he cuts it, and he cuts open the ribbon, and he lets thousands of these $100 bills snowflake to the ground. And they came from the north and the south and the east and the west, and they grabbed, and nobody looked up. What does a guy have to do to get noticed? He sees a large, large flower vase, a crystal vase, feet big. He opens the window, he takes this vase that weighs maybe 70, 80 pounds, and he throws it with all of his might, plummeting, just throwing it to the ground. There is a thunderous, thunderous, thunderous crash, and everybody looked up. Because in life, when there's a crash, everybody looks up. But do we also look up when all of the blessings of health and a good scan and a good blood test and a good visit, when they're snowflaking on our head? We should and must look up when there's a crash. Economic, financial, any emotional crash, any time. You have to look up. But you can't only look up when there's a crash. You've got to, and tonight is really a night of looking up. Not when there's a crash, but when all of those brachos are snowflaking onto our heads, those of us, our spouse, our children, our siblings, it's a night. Our mission is looking up and saying thank you. Looking up when there's a crash only is tzara v'yagon emtza v'shem Hashem ekra. Acknowledging the thank you when the blessings are snowflaking on our head, That's Kois Yeshua Esav Hashem Hashem Ekra. So the sign that's behind me, really the byline should and could and must be Kois Yeshua Esav Hashem Hashem Ekra. We're looking up and saying thank you because of all the brachos that are being showered upon us. There's a well-known story. The way I understood the story was there was a medical expert as well as an American philanthropist who were talking in Israel, perhaps in Bnei Brak, and it was about 1 a.m, and they both decided to go to the Kaisel HaMaravi, the Western Wall, and to pray there. They get there at about 1 a.m, and they notice that a Yerushalmi Yid, which means someone from Jerusalem who's dressed in all of the garb, he's up against the wall, and his face is red. He's just sobbing. And they look at each other, and they say, how can anyone see someone else's pain? If he needs medical assistance, the medical fellow said, I have referrals, I'll help. If he needs financial assistance, the philanthropist said, I'll take care of him. Why else is someone at the Western Wall at the Kosel Maravi at 1 a.m. if they're not suffering either financially or medically? They tap him on the shoulder, this man in a beautiful, the golden coat that they wear in Jerusalem. He turns around and he says, why? We want to help you. I don't need your help and I don't need your help. We can't bear to see someone cry at 1 o'clock in the morning. If you need medical help, I'm a medical expert. If you need financial help, financially, we've got to help you. I don't need either. That's really we've got to help you. We can't see someone crying. Please, medical, financial, will assist you. He looks at the two friends and says, I'm not here because I need medical assistance or financial assistance. I'm here because God blessed me with 12 children. And tonight I married off my 12th child. And the wedding is coming to an end right now, and I took a taxi straight to the Kosel HaMaravi just to say thank you. Kois Yeshua is Esa Uveshem Hashem Ekra. That's the deer. You take a step back and you use it to spring forward. And now I'd like to conclude with the third and final lesson. After we've come together to tell one another we've let go of the branch, we're not in control. After we've come together to realize the power of prayer, and I don't mean the big and the grandiose, I mean like Reb Chaim Shmulevitz said, the one krechs, which means the one broken heart, the one tear, the one I don't know how to pray, but here's what's in my heart. That makes all the difference in the world. Just ask the mother of the Kohen Gadol. And the third and final lesson. I was speaking to Rabbi Scholar on the way down to this level of the home, and he said, this may be one of the greatest things in 25 years Chai Lifeline has ever done. For it's not only helping at the time, but helps well beyond and creates a sense of unity. Hence the topic of tonight's talk is the power of one. My father was very close to the Chazon Ish. For those of you who are aware, the Chazon Ish was one of the greatest sages, the giant of the generation and the previous generation. And the Chazon Ish once told, he said it to a chosn and a kala, a bride and a groom, but it applies here tonight. And for this we thank Chai Lifeline. He said, I seriously disagree with the mathematical computation that the world says. The world says that 1 + 1 = 2. That's not true. 1 + 1 is far greater than 2. And half of 2 is far less than 1. Because 1 + 1, the symmetry and the energy that's created, ask your spouse, ask your parent, ask the person that you love so much that you had the ability to turn to say, help me, give me encouragement. 1 + 1 is not 2. 1 + 1 is the world. That's the power of one. That's why everyone has such a deep hakaras hatova debt of gratitude to Chai Lifeline. That's why somebody who wasn't well turns to their spouse and says thank you. To their parent, to their sibling, to their child, thank you. Because 1 + 1 is far greater than 2. 1 + 1 is the entire world. People ask why, if the heart is the most important part of your body, Why is it on the left side? In Judaism, the right side is the more prominent side. If you pick up a fruit, you hold it in the right hand. If you pick up Friday night the Becher, you hold it in the right. No one should be offended. I'm a lefty, but it's a fact. The right side is more prominent, so why did God put the heart on the left? If the heart is the end-all be-all and the right side is the end-all be-all, then why is it on the left? Put it on the right. And the answer is, because when I face you, my heart is on your right. And when you face me, your heart is on my right. And your heart was not created for you. Your heart was created to be on the right side of your spouse, your sibling, your parent, your child, the one who picked up the phone and called to see how a person was feeling, the one who dropped by a note or a hot challah, or the one who went shopping unexpectedly just for the things that you happen to need. God didn't create your heart for you. He created your heart to be on the right of every person that you face. There's a quote from Partners in Torah. It's my favorite quote. I don't care how much you know until I know how much you care. Don't come and razzle and dazzle me with how much you know. I'm not interested in how much you know. What I want to know is that you care. And after I know that you care, I care to know what it is that you know. People want their heart to be on the right of everyone. When you look across that dinner table, when you get up in the morning, the heart should be on the right of every member of Klal Yisrael. Everyone has to know that we care. And that's really why I gave the title of tonight's talk, The Power of One. It's the one having emunah. It's the one turning to Hashem and saying thank you. And it's the one of being united. Because 1 + 1 isn't 2. 1 + 1 is tonight's room and in sights around the world. 1 + 1 is my heart on your right. 1 + 1 is letting you know that I care. I want to conclude with a 1-minute thought that my father, Harav Mordechai Shapiro Zatzal, used to always say over. And somehow I find it to be the single most inspiring thought, and I think you will as well. And again, I publicly apologize to Dr. Pelkowitz that I have to rush to catch the flight. It is definitely my loss that I won't be here for his talk. Someone who is really a legend, and I'm not saying this to embarrass him, but someone that thousands turn to for guidance, and he does it in such an unassuming, humble way. I apologize that I won't be here. But just to end with this thought from my father, the Hebrew word for soul is neshama. You know that in Hebrew there's a word neshama. You know what neshama means? If you take a look in the Haftorah of Parshas Parah, neshama is void and desolate and barren. How could it be? 2 words that have the same 4 letters, nun, shin, mem, hey. 2 words that have virtually the same nekudos, the same vowels. One means life, and one means void, barren, empty. Why should I get up in the morning? How could that be that 2 words that are virtually identical, same letters, same vowels, neshama, neshama, mean things from the opposite end of the spectrum? Under the shin of neshama is a kamatz. Under the shin of neshama is a patach. If you watch the fingers, what is the difference between a kamatz and a patach? A patach, which is what creates neshama, looks like this. A kamatz is when you add a little support. And when you add a little support, you create a neshama. Just ask people who don't have the support system. Just ask people where the little support is taken away, and they weren't privileged to get the phone calls or the visits or the meaningful, I had you in my tefillos. They could sometimes feel neshama void. Why? They don't have that support system. But when you add a little support, you make a kamatz, a patach into a kamatz, and you create from neshama. All it takes is a little support. Just a little support. And you create a neshama. Ask somebody who's been the recipient of, whether it's that phone call, that smile, that kind word. I thought about you. You were my tefillos. Their life is not neshama. Their life is neshama. All it takes is a little support. That's the power of one. Yehi ratzoin, may it be the will of Hashem, that as well over 100 who have gathered here tonight, and many, many more throughout the world, that we have a mission where we continue with our emunah. We continue with the realization we're not in control. We continue with the turning to Hashem, the power of prayer, where we continue to say thank you. You know why I'm here? Tell Hashem, like the man at the Kosel, just to say thank you. And let the mission be 1 + 1 can take on so very much. It's when you have a heart on someone's right. It's when you let someone know that you care. It's all about a little support. Let neshama be a thing of the past, and let neshama be the new in. Tonight's a night of neshama. Tonight's a night of support. May it be the will of Hashem that people leave here tonight and continue to have a heart on the right of their spouse, their parent, their sibling, their child. In the morning, get up and say thank you. Tell that person how much you love them and how much they mean to you. Make the phone call. Don't put certain things off. Support someone who so desperately needs the support. And just like tonight is a night of neshama, may we leave here tonight with a renewed chizuk, a strength to create many, many, many such neshamos, I should say, throughout Klal Yisrael, throughout the world. And in the merit that we continue to support people, may Hashem always continue to support us in the best of health.